I learned about a man last night while watching a documentary that I have the immense amount of respect for. I was not a gamer growing up. He retired in 2009, the year I got into the NFL, so I didn't get a chance to meet John Madden or listen to him call any of the games we were on. I'd heard his work, but because I wasn't a gamer, because I didn't meet him personally, I don't think I necessarily had an affinity for John Madden. I got that people liked him. I understood John Madden was a big deal. The name was a big deal. After watching the All Madden documentary last night, I was wrong for not learning about this man more. What a trailblazer in the coverage of sport, more specifically football, broadcasting, the ability to connect with people both in the large cities and in the world that is the Midwestern United States of America. His ability and graciousness to talk to everybody and do everything and make a game not only informative but entertaining. I loved that documentary last night. Fox Sports 1 ran it because obviously he passed away and the world was mourning his loss, especially at all four major networks in which he worked and had friends with, and the amount of people he brought together in connection, and the people, Peyton Manning, Bill Belichick, Tom Brady, Patrick Mahomes, Lamar Jackson, you name, everybody was in this thing talking about his influence on the game of football. I did not know enough about him while he was alive. That's on me, 100%. I would like to say it's probably because there was this one time when I was 12 years old. I was playing my brother in Madden. Okay, my brother, big-time gamer. Polar opposite human to me, my brother, big-time gamer. Great at video games. I was not. I bounced around. Playing Madden against my brother, 2, 3 a.m., one of his friends' houses. I had the lead. It's the fourth quarter, fourth down. I'm up 4. He called a timeout with like 16 seconds left, 10 seconds left. I had to punt him the ball. I had to punt him the ball. Poor clock management. Looking back on it now, I probably could have maybe kept the guy in bounds and not had, there's something I did wrong probably in the final 2 minutes that lost that game, but it came down to basically a punt play to end it, me up 4, first time ever going to beat my brother. I punt him the ball. He returns it all the way to the end zone, turns around, runs back to his end zone, turns around, runs all the way back and scores and beats me. Okay? Obviously no time left. At that exact moment, I said, I fucking hate punting. Okay? Hate it. Don't love it. I fucking hate video games. And I hate this Madden game for sure. In that one night, 2 a.m., 3 a.m., against my brother, really probably set me on a course to never really play video games again. And if I would have stuck in it, I probably would have been a much better football mind before I got in the NFL. I probably would have learned football at a much better rate. I probably would have got a chance to enjoy the brain that is Madden that I'm learning about. But because I had that one experience with a much better Madden player against me, it kind of changed my life. And I think that is the thing I thought about last night. If I would have kept a guy in bounds and let the clock run, and I win that game, I probably get addicted to Madden. I probably learn all these things about John Madden. I probably know so much more about football, and that is what Madden was to football. That video game introduced the world to the NFL. It introduced the world to football. It taught people football, and that was by design. John Madden wanted the world to understand the sport that he loved so much. He was a coach literally until his dying day who gave everything he had to the sport of football, and he did it in a different way. And a lot of people last night, there were some executives on that documentary last night that I, was interested to see them talk about being forward-thinking in the coverage of sports. All right. Okay. But the entire take that he changed the way games are covered and he changed sports coverage and everything like that, 100% real. And I wish, and there won't ever be, I wish there was another or more John Maddens out there that understood that the game should be celebrated, the game should be absolutely exciting, entertaining, and you should learn while you're watching the game. I miss John Madden already. I missed John Madden through my entire life, and I'm happy I got a chance to learn a little bit about him last night, and I would like us all to have a moment of silence for an absolute icon. The Madden Cruiser was so cool.
Oh, yeah.
I was watching an old Madden documentary, and we'll talk to Al Michaels, who worked with him for 7 years, calling games today at about 12:40 or so Eastern time. And we'll talk to Shriggs in the second hour, who I think was part of the entire documentary process. I mean, he was promoting it very hard.
Oh, yeah.
So I assume he was part of that, and we'll talk more and more about him. But in the documentary I watched last night, I learned that he got on one plane that flew across the country, and he said immediately upon the door shutting, he had a panic attack. And he said during the flight, he wanted to rip the door off and jump off.
He could have, too. Big guy.
Big guy. Fucking awesomely big guy, by the way. I did not know that about him. He said he was fast, too. Hey, they said he was fast. And he said to himself, if this plane gets on the ground where we're going, I'm never getting on a plane again. He didn't.
Never did.
No, he didn't.
I've said that, probably 4 flights a week.
Oh, yeah.
John Madden said, I'm actually not doing it. And then he changes the entire game, says, I don't give a fuck. I'll drive across Wyoming to get to this game. And in doing so, he starts meeting people at restaurants and like kind of getting the feel of the people that he's covering and the fans of the game. And he was an actual branch of the NFL was out on tour basically for 6 months meeting people. What a game changer. Rest in peace, John Madden. Thank you for everything, dude.
Rest in peace, Coach.
Thank you, John.
An absolute icon in the sports world. Worked alongside John Madden for 7 years calling NFL games and was a massive, vital part of the All Madden documentary. Ladies and gentlemen, friend of the show, Al Michaels.
Yeah!
How you doing, Al?
Big friend of the show. Right. I mean, did you ever get to meet John? Did you know John at all?
So I actually led off the show with saying I wasn't a video game player, and he retired 2009. That was the year I got in. So I never got to meet him at any of the games or the practices or anything. I didn't play video games, so I didn't know much about him. That documentary last night was, I feel like I missed out on an absolute legend of a human and obviously a broadcaster. I was blown away by that man.
He was your kind of guy, I'm telling you. And you were his kind of guy. You know, he loved to have fun. You know, with John, it was one of the great things about John is he didn't affect any other personality when he was on the air. When you saw John Madden, that was John Madden. That's John Madden 24/7. I call him a unicorn. He's one of a kind. He established a new template for broadcasting. You know, Pat, remember in the, well, you don't remember, you probably weren't even born, but in the 70s and like early 80s,
definitely
football was treated on television like a religion. And the premier announcer back in the 70s, in the Lombardi era, in the 60s, was a guy named Ray Scott. And Ray was great. Ray was a minimalist. And Ray would be the guy, you'd hear him, on NFL films these days, he would go, star, dollar, touchdown.
Yeah.
And that's how you did the game, he and his analyst. And then John came along, and John made the game so accessible to fans. He took everything that was complicated and made it simple. And then, things like, telestrating the Gatorade bucket and then the baby bucket and the pigeon runs out on the field. And that was John. Nothing was ever scripted. It was all ad lib. And he was a guy. One of the great things about having him as a partner, I could go anywhere with him. Anywhere, and I know he'd be ready to respond in kind.
So, Al, we were actually talking about that, and we can't thank you enough for coming in and sharing even more insight on the legend that is John Madden. I honestly believe I missed out on a lot because of how old I was, and also when I retired and not getting a chance to enjoy that human as a human. We were talking earlier. Everybody says he changed the game. He changed the game. But you listen to a lot of these games. I don't think there's anybody that did it anywhere near. Hey, it's almost like surgery at this point, some people. And when I retired and I started watching games, I actually thought to myself, hey, this is a celebration. Like, sports are supposed to be a celebration and fun. Aside from a couple of you broadcast booths, I think what you're talking about from way back, just being like methodical, this is what you do, has creeped back in. Do you feel like that is the case? And am I wrong in thinking that, Al?
Well, he did. He spawned a lot of imitators who tried to be like him. But you're right. Some of the guys who come off the field or off the sideline, the minute you hear somebody talking about a 3 technique, you know what I think about? I want you to go to a mall. I want you to talk to 100 people, and I want you to find 2 who know what a 3 technique is. Okay? I mean, how hard is it to explain what a 3 technique tackle is instead of just leaving it as a 3 technique? You know what I'm talking about. So, John, there was never anything that John described where you went, what? What's he really talking about? He was able to get to the essence of it, simplify the most complicated things, and that made it so accessible and relevant and fun. He was so much fun. The other thing, Pat, about John, I think back, I worked with maybe the two most iconic broadcasters ever, John and Howard Cosell. And that was a whole different story, back in the 70s and 80s. And Howard, by the end of his career, Howard was morose. He didn't want to be there. And it fed on the rest of the crew. And for the last 2 or 3 years of Howard's life, and he became unhappy. And it fed, and he would show up at a game and he would cast a pall upon the whole crew.
Yeah.
John was the reverse. He couldn't wait to get to the game. We had a lot of fun, and everybody who worked with him just loved him.
Well, I think that whole team aspect and morale is something that sometimes in the TV world doesn't necessarily happen. I think I've gotten an opportunity to do a lot of really cool things and see a lot of places, and that energy being drained out of a place can happen, especially if it's an important person. But also, the energy that can be brought by people into a thing, that is a talent in of itself, I think. Because there are some long days, especially for John, who was on this bus. The ability to show up every single day, enthusiastic, driven, and inspired. I think that's something that doesn't get talked about a lot. And by the way, your old ass has been doing that for a long time, Al. Long time, man.
Pat, I think about, what it is in almost any business. You make the people around you better, and that's what John did. He established a standard. He had the enthusiasm. He couldn't wait to get to the game. Everybody loved being around John. It made them better. It made everybody want to go to work, enthusiastic about going to work, bring out their best. And, of course, he did that as a coach. The best winning percentage of any coach in history who won 100 or more games. As a broadcaster. And then in the video game world, when he was involved in the Madden game, at the formative stages of it, they came to him, can we throw your name on this game? And a lot of guys, you own a restaurant. Can we put your name on the restaurant? You never show up, right? You eat across the street. With John not only wanted to be a part of that game, he was immersed in that game. And he got with the engineers and he said, here's what we have to do. We have to make this look like real football. And how's that worked out through the years? $7
billion in total revenue, I learned in the All Madden documentary that the man to our left, who not only crushes on Sunday Night Football, also you should be in more documentaries. The way it was great quotes whenever you're talking about a guy you care about, I assume.
Hey, this is my new platform. I'm like Aaron Rodgers. I'm going on the
Pat. Oh, jeez,
I got something to say. I'm coming right on the show. I need AJ Hawk on the show one of these days.
Yeah. Well, we're very thankful that is the case. I got a chance to play while you, obviously, and you're in the NFL before me. You're in the NFL long after me. I got to meet you in a pregame one time. You and I think Chris were coming to talk to Vinatieri, and I was just there. And I remember shaking your hand, introducing myself to you, and then you walked away, and I said, I'm talking to Adam Vinatieri, who's a Hall of Famer, and I'm teammates with Peyton at this point. I'm like, man, Al fucking Michaels, dude, this is pretty sweet. And then I go back down. It really is. I'm very lucky that you come on the show, and we're very thankful, especially today, to share your experiences about the icon that is John Madden. Go ahead, Ty.
Al, one of the things that I thought was really interesting is, for people from my generation, why do you think it is that, you didn't really know anything about his coaching career, and it seems like that would kind of, a big-time football guy would piss a guy like that off, but, it didn't seem like he cared at all about what people, the younger people, that they knew him from the video game, and that he wasn't, one of the most brilliant football minds ever. Is it because he had the respect of his peers, so it didn't matter, or was he just such a jovial guy? Did that ever really get to him?
Not at all. You're sitting there with a Green Bay sweatshirt on. I'm thinking about, would anybody know who Curly Lambeau was if they didn't name the stadium after him? Think about that.
He was forced out. Curly Lambeau was forced out of that, Al.
Yeah, George Halas coached for 40 years. He owned the team, but 4 10-year increments. I mean, people sort of know who Lombardi is. A lot of young people know because the trophy is named after Vince Lombardi. There were so many great coaches in those years, but everything is like the most recent thing, especially if you're younger. So obviously, more than half the country wasn't around when John Madden was coaching. I mean, he was a fabulous coach. He changed the template for broadcasting, and almost everybody now who's of a certain age knows him through the video game, and that game helped to create millions and millions of fans. That never bothered John. The only thing that I think was hugely important to John when he finally got into the Hall of Fame, and he was a finalist a number of times.
28
he
years?
Right, whatever it was ridiculous. But he wanted to go in as a coach only and exclusively. Even though we all know at that particular point, when these guys are voting, I mean, there's no way you divorce the rest of a career from coaching. So when people were voting for John Madden to get into the Hall of Fame, they had to be thinking about what he was as a broadcaster.
Yes.
They had to be thinking about the video game. So it all came together. But it was very important for John to say, I got into the Hall of Fame as a coach exclusively.
Yeah, and that moment listening to his kids speak and his wife Virginia in the documentary about him getting into the Hall of Fame and them coming on stage and crying, and that was like a very big dream and goal, it felt like, for a guy who had everything and accomplished everything, being acknowledged by his peers for his coaching gig, but contributions to the game would have got him in as well. I appreciate the fact that he's like, nah, from what I did in coaching, though, please a little bit more respect. I like that a lot from that man. The bus, the Madden Cruiser. That thing was legendary. What did you guys play cards on there? How did he pass the time? No internet. He read books, watched film. What did he do on that thing?
My over-under on the bus, Pat, was 1 hour. That's it, right? So I never went across the country. I never went farther than like Boston to Providence if we had a game in Foxborough. No, the bus was fun. We traveled to our production meetings. But, there were people who went across the country with John Madden. I don't know how he did it, but that was the way he had to travel, because he got off a plane in 1979, and it was interesting. He was flying from Tampa to San Francisco, but he stopped in Houston. And he said if the plane lands in Houston, he's getting off the plane, which he did. So somebody has the back end of that ticket that would probably be worth $100,000 in some auction. The back end of the ticket from Houston to San Francisco, and he went to the train station, and he never got on a plane again. And I'll tell you something amazing that nobody thinks about right now. Virginia Madden, to whom he was married for 62 years, they celebrated their anniversary last weekend. Virginia Madden at one point had a pilot's license. She took flying lessons. She did. She took flying lessons. So not that she manifested it. She never became a real pilot, but she got a license. And here was John, who would never get on a plane. Never get on a plane.
Hey, Al, we know you have a lot to talk about today. I assume there's a lot of recollecting and reminiscing. We can't thank you enough for joining us, boss.
Boys, I got to be a regular on this show. You know that. Come on.
Hey, is that real? Is that real?
Hell no.
No. I'm not talking about the cigar. I'm talking about becoming a regular on the show.
Oh, hell yes. Are you kidding me? Come on. You think I'm going to let Aaron Rodgers take the entire show every Tuesday? Get me on I tell you, Aaron is the best. He is the best in our production meetings. The best. You know that. So
John Madden, actually Brett Favre talked about it. He said anytime I walked into a production meeting and Madden was there, it was going to be a good production meeting. I assume those get a bit monotonous sometimes, and then
they do. But Brett was terrific. Brett would get very long-winded and expansive, but Brett was fun. And Peyton Manning, of course, was terrific. Brady was great too. And it's too bad because when John's last year was 2008, which was when Aaron was coming in. So John really didn't get to know Aaron during that period of time. But when it comes to those meetings, I mean, he's fantastic in those meetings. Fantastic.
Well, I think he's only fantastic if he respects you. And I don't think there's anybody that doesn't respect old Al Michaels. Ladies and gentlemen, Al Michaels. Thank you, man. Yeah. We appreciate you.